Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the women's soccer. There's recently a women's soccer tournament. Now, what surprised me is just how much propaganda is being pushed. I noticed in all the taxpayer-funded TV stations and the tightly globalist controlled TV stations and media outlets generally, could be cable and so on, they were really pushing this hard. I mean, really pushing it. You couldn't get onto their websites without being wall-to-wall women's soccer. And in the build-up to the tournament and during it and since, and then there are all these sidebar stories of stunning and brave women and LGBTQ and how these women were fighting back against the patriarchy, fighting back against misogyny, and fighting back against racism and homophobia. They were stunning and fucking brave. Now, I don't know if every single member of the teams, women's teams, around the world is a lesbian, but there have been claims of women being kicked off teams, local soccer teams and things like that, for not being lesbian, and they try and take it to court, but there's no court will hear it. If the reverse occurs, where the lesbian can't get onto the straight person's team, then it's a disaster. All the organs and power of the state have to be activated and mobilized to defeat this fascist Nazi Hitlerism. But anyway, now there's a sort of fair bit of propaganda for anyone that's watched a women's game. It's a long way from being as exciting and fast-paced as a men's game. So there's a difference, quite a bit of a difference there. I've sort of thought, well, maybe because there's always these claims, the reason people don't watch women's soccer is because they're all fascist Nazis and misogynists and yada yada. And I doubted that was true, because the people that were peddling that were the same race hustler and grifters that tell us we're all racist Nazis and so on. So anyway, so I've made a point of saying, okay, I'll watch, go online and watch a couple. I lasted like 2 minutes and I was trying hard. So it's not something that would attract anywhere near the same number of viewers and hence sponsors. It's all about eyeballs. If you can get the same amount of people can go and watch women's soccer or one-legged soccer or whatever you want to, any other form of soccer, then, and you get the same amount of eyeballs, then you have the same amount of promotional and advertising and marketing opportunities, and so the same amount of money is on the table in effect for sponsorship and so on, for viewing rights and the like. But this is not the case. Now, there was one of the practice. The argument is that women's soccer is now pulling the same crowds as men's soccer. Therefore, all the women players, nearly all lesbians, should be paid the same, and they're nearly all politically activist, as in, the world is a wicked, evil white person, misogyny, racist, Nazi, fascist. And so, and it takes a lesbian soccer player to fight back against that evil. So anyway, part of the deal is they're getting sellout crowds, and this is one of their arguments. We've always been getting sellout crowds. We get huge crowds. Therefore, we should get the same pay as men. And if we don't, then that's simply don't get the same pay as men. That's simply proof that we're in that Hitler is in charge. So anyway, there was a match, a women's soccer match that was in one of the local stadiums, well, not that far away from where we live. So we were driving past, and I made a point of sort of looking at, because when you come over the hill, you've got sort of 100 meters or so where you can get quite a good view of the stadium, along the freeway there. Quite a good view of the stadium, and then the road sort of turns away and you can't see it anymore. So I thought, well, okay, if you're getting the same crowds as the men, and they were highlighting this, we're getting sellout crowds, everyone's turning up, and if you're not on board with this, then you must be a Nazi, and this sort of stuff. And as it came along the road, I couldn't see anybody there. you could see a few sort of this is at the one side that you see some officials on the like the linesmen or the referees, those sort of people. You could see some of them there, but I couldn't see any crowds at all. In fact, I couldn't see anybody. Now, I've also driven past there when the men's games are even an hour or so before it starts, and the stadium's got quite a few people already, well before the game, the kickoff. So why is it that they're claiming it's a sellout crowd when, from what I could see, hardly anybody was turning up? Let's even suppose at the area that I couldn't see, it would have been, say, the rear right-hand left, or the rear right-hand corner, going back up to the back of the, say it was that, so I don't know, an eighth maybe. Let's suppose that every seat in that was occupied. It still only would be a 2,500 crowd there. So why they claim, yet the media thing claimed it was a sellout crowd and the place was full and standing room only and da-da-da-da. And when that was a blatant lie, it wasn't that at all. As I say, assuming that only in the area I couldn't see had every seat occupied, there still would have only been about 2,500 people there as spectators. And that's unlikely that only the place I couldn't see had the spectators. But anyway, so I doubt if there was even 500 spectators at this match. Yet again, the media claimed it was a sellout crowd. And so certainly by the research I've done, that people who were there, on their mobile phones filming the match or part of it, the women's match or part of it, then you can see from as the camera pans across the pitch as the ball goes around, that there's hardly anybody watching. Yet again, they claim sellout crowds. Now, what's another trick that they do, and they've done this in various events, or it could be say entertainment events where they can't get the people. So say there's a singer or some entertainer who's been paid a flat fee for doing the whatever the entertainment is, singing or playing instruments or something, and they can't get a decent number of people into, the promoters can't get a decent number of people into the venue, then they'll just give tickets away. Then the employees are told, look, here's 50 tickets each, give them 100 tickets each, whatever, give them to everyone, give them to your friends, it's free. And you also get free parking, on site and this sort of stuff. So people, okay, what's a good night out? It's a free, and some of them even throw in a free, it's like a free hot dog or something, And so, people go, oh, okay, no, it's free. Now, it may be a ticket that normally you would pay, I don't know, $100 for or something. So people go along to that. But that's the only way they can put bums on seats in these events. And the same went for the women's soccer matches. They were giving away, tens of thousands of free tickets with also free giveaways and free handouts. Now, in spite of doing that, they still can't even half fill up the stadium, which just shows how little support there is for it. Now, bear in mind, these are soccer teams where the national women's soccer team of Australia got beaten 7-0 by a team of schoolboys. The American women's team, which are the world champions, got beaten 5-2, I think it was, or 5-1. By also a team of teenage schoolboys, and you see that elsewhere around the place. Another team got beaten by a women's team got beaten by a bunch of men who were in their 50s, and so on. So that'll give you an idea of the standard and caliber of the game. So really, the whole thing's surrounded by propaganda. What got me was I went on to one of the websites that's promoting this, and looked at the cost of having a feature promotion on the website, and then looked at the amount of time the women's soccer was promoted on those websites and the cost of doing it. Now, if you add, assuming they charge the market rate for the advertising over the time that they were doing it, you'd be exceeding. This is just in Australia, by the way. And just on one website, you'd be exceeding $1 million in promotional costs over that time. Now, if you look at the revenue, as in the money generated, the excess money that Australian soccer generates, women's soccer generates, then it's not enough to even cover the cost of the promotion. So not only have we got a situation where the players are agitating, the lesbian players are agitating, because nearly all lesbian, they're agitating for equal pay with men, because we're fighting Nazis and all that sort of thing. But the revenue that the whole game generates wasn't even enough to cover the promotion on one of the websites that was doing this coverage of the women's soccer. So money's coming from somewhere to super over subsidize. So there's vast amounts of cash swashing, but it's not the cash or the money that's generated by the game itself, or by people attending and paying at the gate to watch a match, or for that matter the rights for broadcasting it, because in the official broadcasting they studiously avoid showing the stands and showing the empty seats so they studiously avoid that. They also do things like speeding up the film, so they'll speed up the film by 15 or 20% to give the impression that the game's much faster than it is. And why do they do that? If it's that good a game, you don't need to do those sort of misrepresentations. But it's what they're doing. So somewhere this is obviously a kind of a gender come lifestyle sexuality, the lesbian angle, a grift, and it's being funded by the globalists to create this idea of race division and create the idea that this is a terrible, terrible society run by Nazis because hopeless lesbian athletes can't get the same amount of people to watch the game, which means they're all Nazis, fascist, Hitler. So it's being used as a grift and a hustle and to sow division in our society. You don't see these things outside of the white society. There's this sort of gender and sexuality lifestyle division is only promoted in the white societies and by the globalists. And as you can see from this, it is very generously funded. You've been attached to us today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.